It has been a huge week for Sunderland. We've won 2 on the road against Gillingham and AFC Wimbledon, a comprehensive 4-1 win midweek, which we all watched from home because you're allowed iFollow, well, the equivalent in this country, and then everyone watched it from Colorado or Arkansas at the weekend with the VPNs. James Hunter is here and he was obviously there taking it all in. Gav, you would have watched it from home, did you?
I was in Utah again.
Utah, yeah. And I wasn't there, I was working yesterday, but I've tracked it all on Twitter.
I watched the full game.
Good. We've got 3 different perspectives in, and I'm going to fire you questions about everything that happened. So, firstly, Gav, how are you doing? How's things?
I'm very good, yeah.
Did you enjoy that donut I just bought you?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it off my throat at the minute.
Yeah, it was a bit crumbly, wasn't it? Stuff on the top before.
There we go. Feel better.
And we've also had the Chronicles, James Hunter.
Yeah. Hi there, how are you doing?
I'm good.
My debut today.
On home and away. What was the last Sunderland game you missed?
Crikey. Actually, I think the last Sunderland game I missed was the 3-0 Tyne-Way derby.
How did you miss that?
Which one? Was a few of them, you know?
The 1st of February, would it have been? About 4 or 5 years ago?
2014.
Yeah, only because it was my dad's retirement, so family came first, just for once. But I totted it up, actually, and I think that was the 5th Sunderland game I've missed in 20 years.
Nice. So, and that was a bad one to miss.
It was a bad one to miss, as things turned out.
Which one was that then? Was that
the comprehensive 3-0, the one where we actually killed them?
Oh, when Poya was manager, and
yeah,
that was good.
Yeah, I missed that one. I was skiing.
You know, my story with that, I'd never missed an away derby since, well, my first ever one was the 2-1 in the rain when Phillips and Quinn scored.
So 2000.
Yeah, and I'd never missed one. And obviously we kept getting beat. So I had the ticket for the Canio derby, and literally 2 hours before kick-off I was like, I don't want to go. I think it's me. I think I'm the bad luck. Yeah. So I sold me ticket, and I stayed in town to watch it, and we won 3-0. So the next year when the Poirier 3-0 happened, I was like, well, I'm not going.
So you missed both of them?
So I bought my ticket and I passed it on to somebody. We won again, and the winning run kept going, didn't it? And then I finally decided to go back when we drew 1-1. So I think it's me.
So you missed the last one at 2-1 as well?
I missed all of them.
Last minute 1-0.
I could have went to them because I had enough points to go to the games. I just decided not to. We kept on winning. Then I did go back and we drew 1-1. So next time we're playing Newcastle, I'm not going, obviously.
Hopefully next season.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't know that, Gav. I'm quite interested to see. I would always just go.
I did blame myself afterwards. Well, it was my fault Mitrovic scored.
It's not. Because there isn't such thing as jinxes. Everyone's got a jinx, so why are you that important?
Well, the facts, they're
facts,
they're on the table.
Yeah, but you've been there when we won, so it doesn't make sense.
Don't bully us.
Were you there for the 3-2 defeat?
Yes, when Emery scored, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That was a good game.
I know. Right.
2 good Sunderland goals, marred by...
I wasn't expecting to be talking about this right now.
No,
so
anyways.
Right, okay, so I'm going to go over a quick review of the game yesterday. So we're lined up 4-2-3-1, although a lot of people seem to be thinking we're playing 3 at the back. Can we just clarify?
Do you know what it is? It's not a solid
solid
system,
4.
no. But in our possession, it's slightly different. Yeah.
Well, we asked Jack Ross exactly how it works, and he described it as a lopsided 3-5-2. So that is the official verdict. It is a black 3.
Wow.
But I have to say to you, looking at it, the way that they line up, it looks like a 4, but he said it is in fact a lopsided 3-5-2.
Well, the left back basically plays on the wing, doesn't he? So
I look forward to playing it.
So he's talking about basically having, one wing back massively advanced, and then that leaves you with what looks like a 4, but that guy is actually in effect.
And Lyndon Gooch maybe playing as a Gooch is just up and down the line, so
Gooch has just got energy,
and he just hugs the right hand side, so I guess he is.
But at the end of the day, lopsided 3-5-2.
Who cares? They're winning, so it doesn't really make a difference. Yeah. I look forward to playing a lopsided 3-5-2 on every video game next year, because I always copy the Sunderland formation. I used to like that. Do you know when we used to play with Barini with the 4-3-3 kind of thing? I think it was with Allardyce when I had that. No, it wasn't. It was the Poya where I had Barini left forward.
Yeah.
I used to always copying that. Just a random aside. So we started 4-2-3-1 or 3-5-2 lopsided. John McLaughlin in nets, Donald Love, Reece James, Glenn Louvens, Jack Baldwin, midfield, Cattermole, Power, then the sort of attacking foursome of Gooch, Honeyman, Maguire and Josh Madger. And didn't really start great. Pickett opened the scoring with what I thought was a very good goal. Really good volley, and surprising considering how wasteful Wimbledon were that they had a goal of such quality in them. Second half was better, but I still think we were second best. Probably fair to say, or maybe drew the second half, but Cattermole follows up his own effort and then scores. We've got an equaliser there, 1-1, and then we were probably happy to settle for a point. I certainly know in our group chat everyone was keen to get the point and get out there, but Cattermole scores a wonderful goal, like a stunning volley that's just so uncharacteristic for him, a run from deep. So we came away 2-1 winners, held on for a priceless 3 points. So I think the best place to start is Lee Cattermole. So James, what did you make of his performance yesterday, and maybe even the last 4 games?
I think he was excellent yesterday. I think, to be honest with you, he's been very good, as you say, over these last 4 games. I know that he polarises opinion. There are people that think he's past his best. There are people that saw him as part of this, inverted commas, rotten core. There are people that just think he's been here too long and needs to move on. But I still think he has something to offer. I think when you look at the team over these past few years, he's been one of the few players that hasn't been swinging the lead. You can have your own opinion of him ability-wise, but I think in terms of his character and drive and desire to do well, I don't think that you can question that in him, and I would always find a place for him in the team unless you can replace him with somebody better, and that's going to be difficult to do in League One.
Do you think he's going to be now first name on the team sheet provided he stays?
Well, that's the big thing. Obviously, the finances are such that until that loan window or continental transfer window closes on the 31st, we won't quite know whether he'll still be here or not. But I'd be quite happy for him to stay if the club can afford to hang on to him, and I think Jack Ross would be too. I think that he wouldn't be in the team now if Jack Ross thought that there was any problem with playing him. And I think that you could see yesterday, just what he does bring. I mean, it wasn't just his goals; it was his all-round performance. There was a whole lot more to it. Although, of course, the goals get all the attention, not least because he doesn't score that many.
And do you think somebody like me, who was critical of Cattermole a couple of weeks ago, but he deserved it in my opinion after that Luton game, was at fault for the goal, do you think I should be eating humble pie, or do you think I should hold off on that for a few months? Because obviously he's had 4 good games, but that doesn't necessarily make up for 2 bad years. I
don't think that you should necessarily eat humble pie. I think that, as with all these things, forms up and down, and people's opinions change from maybe not match to match, but from time to time in people's careers. I think the only thing that you can do is keep your mind open and be prepared to change your view if you see evidence in front of you that causes you to do that. And I would say that games like yesterday would put the case for Cattermole. I just say keep the situation under review.
Yeah, I'm happy to eat humble pie if Cattermole keeps banging out them sort of performances. Gav, what did you make of him yesterday? Were you critical of Cattermole? Were you sitting on the debate before these last 4 games?
Yeah, I mean, before he came to the team, I was very much in favour of him leaving, I guess. I find it difficult with Cattermole because for a long time I really, really loved watching him play for Sunderland. I felt as though that all of our hopes as a fan base at times hinged on him and how well he played. And under Poirier for a while, he was tremendous. But I just think that the last couple of years soured everything. But then what has become apparent in recent weeks is that the players that we've brought into the club very much fit into his mentality, the kind of person he is, and it's brought him back to life a little bit. So I'm, like James said, the financial aspect of it, and I mean, I'm a fan, I shouldn't worry too much about the financial aspect, but we do know that he's on a lot of money, and that if he is to leave, it's going to be quite difficult for us to get rid of him. So the fact that he is so professional on the pitch, I guess, and in training every day, is a little bit of it's a little bit warming, I guess, because him and Oviedo could have, went down the Gilabodji and Dong route. Yeah, and they could have really, that could have harmed the club, I guess. But he hasn't. He's dug in, and for as long as he's here, he's going to give his best, I would imagine. Whether he's still got the ability to compete every week, I guess at this level, yes, he does. If we get promoted next season, it would be interesting to see how he fared, because I thought people forget this, but him and John O'Shea last season played pretty much every game. People seem to have this feeling that they're not fit very often, but he played probably through the pain barrier quite a lot. And I thought he struggled last season, but everyone did. It would be interesting to see if he has a good season this year, stays fit, and we'll get promoted and he plays most weeks. It would be interesting to see how he copes next year, because this is a player who's played at the top level almost his whole career. It's not like someone like Max Power, for instance, who, though he's a very good player, is pretty much a League One midfielder and always has been, and he's now looking at Sunderland to kick on. This is Lee Cattermole's played in the Premier League until last year, 2017. He was a Premier League player his whole career, so it'll be interesting to see how he does. But I'm like you. I feel like eat a little bit of humble pie, because I had written him off, and he's done exactly what I'd hope all players in that situation would do, and he's proven people wrong.
I think you make an interesting point as well, because I think if you look back to the early 2000s when Kevin Phillips was here at Sunderland, there's a lot of people that still look back to his last season at Sunderland and think that he sort of chucked in the towel through some of that. And I know you've said that Cattermole, you were on board with Cattermole until maybe the last couple of seasons. Maybe there's been an aspect of that with him, that he's been dragged down by the general malaise around the club, in the way that Kevin Phillips was in that final season at Sunderland. You couldn't question Kevin's contribution before that, but in that last season, he's himself admitted that he could see everything going wrong around him, and maybe that affected him. And perhaps it was the same for Lee Cattermole, and perhaps the change of ownership and management and the general positivity that's coming around the club now has sort of revitalised them a bit. We can't do anything about the money. The money's there, the contract's there. That's just something that either the club has to bite the bullet and pay, or has to say, well, we really can't afford to do this, we have to move him on. But from Lee's point of view, he's proved that he's professional, and for as long as he's here, which might be till the end of the season, might just be till the end of next week, he's going to give everything that he possibly can. If he does leave, it will be interesting that his performance yesterday will be his swan song, of course.
It's interesting to think, though, when McGeoch's back, hard to envisage them dropping Max Power at the moment. He's obviously been a revelation since he's came in, so they do actually have their three players, and that's not even counting the likes of Ethan Robson and Luke O'Nien, who's behind Ballymumba as well. So he's got a lot of options, hasn't he, when everyone gets fit, and that's going to be the issue now, is where does everything fit together, and who are the better two centre mids? Or do you just approach it game by game? Is Lee Cattermole better suited to play in Wimbledon, but a home game against Oxford next weekend, are you best off playing Power and McGeoch? I mean, is that how you should approach it? It's
interesting you say that, because Jack Ross has already said a couple of times that he picks his team week by week. So he looks at training and he goes, who deserves to play, and he picks a team based off that. Obviously, I mean, the fact that Lee Cattermole scored 2 goals yesterday probably means that he's going to play next week. It'd be a bit daft if he didn't. But I think the way Ross approaches it is the right way. It's assess each game at a time. Don't think about, right, well, they're my best 2. Look at it and think, this is a game where we're going to have to control possession a bit more, and that's maybe where McGeoch will come into it. For instance, yesterday, him coming on the pitch for me changed the game, because I felt in the first half we didn't hold the ball at all. Possession, I think we were sloppy in possession. As soon as he came on, we're just so much more calm. I mean, I know we weren't perfect, but we definitely looked better on the ball with him just sitting in front of the midfield. And to be honest, him coming on released Cattermole a bit, who played further forward and got 2 goals, which, it's surprising, but you listen to what George Honeyman said in his interview after the game on SCFC.com and SCFC.com even, and he said that it didn't shock him that Cattermole was able to score a goal like he did, because his technique's brilliant. Well, to be honest, we've never seen him in those sort of positions, and at times, yesterday for instance, it worked out well. The week before, when I think it was Josh Madger's goal against Scunthorpe, he was in a position where the whole crowd were asking him to shoot, and he played a lovely little pass to the left, and that led to Madger scoring. So, yeah, it's like I said before, the fact he's been a player at the top level for so long should mean that he should coast through games at this level, really. And if he's fit and motivated, he's playing every week, isn't he?
If he left now, if he left tomorrow, you'd struggle to replace him with somebody of similar quality. Given the budget and everything else that you'd have to work to before Friday, wouldn't you? You'd struggle to replace him in League One.
Yeah,
he would weaken the team if he left tomorrow.
Yeah, I wonder if they've already bought his replacement, which is why we've got so many options now. I wonder whether, because nobody could have seen this coming, surely. The last 2 weeks,
no,
he did seem very much out of favour. I mean, he played. He was in the squad. Was he in the squad for the second game of the season? And
he was not included in the first game. And that was
he just wasn't in the squad at all, and it came down.
I think the Sheffield Wednesday game, I think they were like, right, last chance. And I think he's obviously he's grasped it with both hands, hasn't he? Because it was a surprise to even see him start against Sheffield Wednesday, to be honest.
I think it was interesting. I have no evidence for this beyond my own personal belief, but I think maybe that first game of the season, given everything else that surrounded it and the 31,000 crowd and, the positivity, I think possibly there was something at the back of the manager's mind that he didn't want to throw in Lee Cattermole, somebody that polarises opinion, and sort of have people, half the crowd thinking it was a good thing and half the crowd thinking it was a bad thing. Maybe he felt it was better to keep everybody on board and not include Lee. And also, I guess Lee didn't know what kind of reception he might get in that game. Yeah. That's just my own personal view. Sometimes these things have an impact as well. He wouldn't have known what reception he was going to get.
He represents the old era, doesn't he? That was certainly the impression. So I can understand that. Anyway, I'm going to move quickly on to a negative. Is should we be worried that I'll throw this to James. Should we be worried that we aren't playing well, first and foremost? Yesterday, I would say 9 times out of 10 would lose that game. Like, I know you can talk about, a champion's kind of performance, you play bad and you win, but, they miss some sitters. Is it a worry that, we aren't playing great? Will somebody, actually hammer us at some point down the line because of the performance levels, aren't quite there? Or should we just be happy that we're winning?
Well, I think that there will be games which Sunderland will lose that nobody will see coming. You'll go somewhere and somebody will score 3, maybe even 4, and you'll think, well, never saw that coming. But I think that when you're in a little spell, I mean, Gillingham and Wimbledon fitted in the same bracket, really. Sunderland could easily have lost both those 2 games, but didn't. And that's the key thing. The point is that they had those 2 games, didn't play well, but still got the points. And that's the important thing, because there's still time then. Because you feel if you get the points when you're not playing well, hey, when things finally click, the rest should come, a lot easier. And I think there's something to be said for that. Don't forget, Sunderland are still a bit of a work in progress, in the fact that not all the players are fit, and this probably isn't the team that Jack Ross would pick if everybody was fit and available. There's still Charlie White to come in. Dylan McGeoch isn't quite ready to start games yet. Obviously further down the line you've got Duncan Watmore and Aidan McGeady also to come in, and obviously it depends how you put those together, but this team will get better from where it is now. But if you're winning games in the meantime,
it's only good.
Brilliant. No, I wouldn't say we're not necessarily playing very well. I think the Scunthorpe game is probably the most professional Sunderland performance I can remember in years. But obviously the last 2 performances haven't been great. But then you've got to remember, both away from home, so that totally changes the dynamic of the performance. When you're away from home, the home team's expected to come on to you quite a bit, which both times they did. And like you rightly said, better teams might have punished us, I think. But they didn't. Didn't. That's a fact. You can only beat what's in front of you, I guess. What it does for me shows that we have a lot of quality, and like James says, when things really get taken over, makes you wonder how good we could be. Because yesterday, for instance, Josh Madger probably had his first poor game of the season. In 3-4 weeks' time, you're going to have a fully fit Charlie White. You know what I mean? So if Madger's having a poor game, you're going to have options.
I mean, and in League One as well. I mean, Wimbledon played some very direct football, but they didn't have to create a lot of chances. And on another day, the lad Trotter in particular could have had 2 or 3 goals. But that's the difference in League One. If you need 5 or 6 chances to score a goal, then you're gonna struggle. Particularly if you're playing against a team like Sunderland, that for all there's only Josh Madger in there at the moment, who's the natural striker. They're a lot more ruthless, aren't they? As they proved at Gillingham as well.
I think they've got goals everywhere on the pitch, don't they? You look at every single position, apart from possibly right back with Matthews and Love, but everywhere else, it looks like there's going to be goals in that team. So that's a positive. And I think the fact we're so clinical, that's got to be taken. I mean, against Gillingham, I think we had pretty much 4 or 5 shots on target to score 4 goals.
Confident teams don't need a lot of chances to score goals. Like last season, you wouldn't have seen players like Honeyman taking. I know Honeyman scored a lot of goals, but the goal he scored in midweek, I mean, that's just confidence. It's like, I'm just going to hit this and it's going. You know what I mean? Yeah. And how often do you see that? I always remember this. I think it was when O'Neill was manager. And Craig Gardner used to just hit things from anywhere, and it would always go in. And at that time, we were scoring all kinds of goals. I remember Fraser Campbell scoring a couple of worldies. And I remember thinking at the time, it's just confidence.
Yeah.
And at that time, we were playing with confidence, and the players weren't scared to shoot from. It didn't matter where they were.
It was ridiculous. We were scoring literally every time they seemed to shoot from range. It was flying at the top.
It reminds me
of all the difference. And George was like that last season, as you say. And when was the last time you remember seeing Lee Cattermole in the 6-yard box? Both his goals were in the 6-yard area yesterday. When do you see Lee Cattermole in the 6-yard area? But if you're confident, then that's where you go.
Nicely. I want to go through. We'll try and do this every week. Sort of, each player individually from the game yesterday. Obviously helpful for me who wasn't there. We'll start obviously from Nets. McLaughlin, how did he do? He looked a bit shaky on the highlights, but I don't know if that was, maybe
didn't have a lot. I didn't think he actually had loads to do. What I like about McLaughlin is he's good at everything. He's not spectacular at anything, but he's good at everything. He's so well rounded. That's just. I mean, I watched the Forest Birmingham game yesterday, and watching Pantilimon and Camp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what we've become used to. Other with the exception of Pickford in the last couple of years, we haven't quite had a keeper who can do everything. And McLaughlin, for me, I know he was probably could have done better for the goal midweek. Tommy Hughes' goal at Gillingham. But to be honest, other than that, I don't think he's put a finger wrong.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, he came out to take a cross in midweek at Gillingham and sort of got caught up in traffic, which is what led to that goal. But I don't think you could blame him for the goal against Wimbledon. He had to come for a lot of crosses. There was a lot of physicality yesterday at Kingsmeadow because Wimbledon are very much like the Wimbledon of old, really. And also Sunderland were pretty poor at stopping crosses, so he had an awful lot of balls whizzing across the penalty area, and I thought he dealt with them pretty well.
Move on. Donald Love, not a great performance, possibly at fault for the goal.
Yeah, I think the cross that came in, he's got to do better. He does very little to stop the lad getting past him and putting it in the box. I don't think they score that goal with Adam Matthews at right back. I mean, I don't think Matthews is a fantastic player, but he's certainly a lot more wily.
He doesn't do much wrong, though, does he?
No. My problem with Donald Love, and I really want to like him, and I really want him to succeed, but it doesn't matter. I mean, in the Premier League, I thought, well, if we go down, he's going to be all right in the Championship. When in the Championship, he struggled there, give or take a few performances. So I thought when he went down this season, I thought he's going to really grasp this, and he just doesn't seem to carry himself in the way that the other players do. He's not got the confidence yet. I don't know what that is. I don't know whether he's got to play more regularly. He is in and out of the team. That's maybe the one thing with Donald Love. He doesn't play every week. He's either injured or Matthews becomes available and he's dropped. But I thought yesterday he was poor for the goal, to be honest.
Yeah, as I said, they let too many crosses into the box yesterday, and that was one of them. He got past Donald Love much too easily. Of course, if the lad isn't on the end of that cross and to score the goal, then nobody would think too much about it. It's just the fact that it happened to be the one time, or one of the times, that he breezed past Donald Love and the cross came in. That's where the goal came from. If the goal had come from one of the other crosses, then it wouldn't have seemed half so bad. I thought he started pretty shakily yesterday, but he improved. So I thought he was heading in the right direction. He is carrying this the after effects of this ankle injury which he got on the opening day. Whether that had an impact, who knows?
Yeah, you never know. You never know what's happening with injuries and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say he's in and out the team quite a lot.
Yeah.
It's not good for any player, is it?
No. Right, central defence, James. What do you think of? Yesterday we had a change around at half time as well, but Baldwin in particular at the minute, he seems to be impressing everyone. Certainly me. I think he's been a great signing.
Looks really classy. Yeah. He seems to be growing in confidence. He's obviously played at this level, so he knows what to expect. He's only young, but he looks like he's got plenty of nous. He reads the game well, and I thought he did really well yesterday. And to be honest with you, against Gillingham as well in midweek.
I think they've got a bit of looking at the model that they were talking about when they came in here, the Dortmund model. He's a player that who looks like he's got resale value. Like he's not worth £200,000 now, is he? If he continues this form, you're looking at maybe look at Dan Burn just went for $6 million to Brighton. He could be that kind of level. Player. Leuven's went off at half time injured. I don't know what the
said his groin started to tighten up on him. Ross said he could have carried on, but they just decided to take him off just to make sure. Obviously, playing 3 games in the space of a week, it's quite a lot. Yeah, it's quite a lot for him. So they decided to take him off rather than take any risks. And in a way, what was quite pleasing about that is that Ozturks had a pretty torrid start. Every time I've seen him so far, but when he came on, he did okay. He wasn't brilliant. He wasn't Franz Beckenbauer, but he was absolutely fine. So that in itself was a positive to take from the game, I think.
Yeah. I couldn't disagree with that.
Yeah, it's good to get a bit of confidence from him.
Yeah, Ozturk. Yeah. I was pretty disappointed with him the first time I seen him, which was at Darlington. And then just every game since, really.
Well, Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah. I mean, that was he'd actually. Do you know what it is in that game? He played all right, but he made one really bad mistake. And you do fear players, especially central defenders, if they've got one bad mistake in them every game.
Titus.
Yeah, someone like that. But I know I'm going back on this, but Baldwin. I think one thing which at least gives us confidence with Baldwin is that he spent pretty much all of last season playing alongside Stephen Taylor, who I would say him and Leuven's are quite similar, slower, older defenders. It stands him in good stead for this season because he's not coming in going, Jesus Christ, what I'm having to do all this guy's work. He's used to that. He's played alongside a similar sort of player for a long time at Peterborough, and came here, and to be honest, he makes Leuven's look better because of the way he covers over the ground. And I know we don't really. I know James said it's a lopsided 3 at the back formation, but in a traditional 5 at the back or 3 at the back, it would be nice to see how he does in that because he's just so calm and collected, and it's like having another midfielder because the way he brings the ball forward, he comes into midfield and it immediately pushes the rest of the team 10 yards up the pitch, and like compare that to last year when you had Wilson and O'Shea who couldn't get past the halfway line. I mean,
Corny trying to play these 50 yards.
It totally changes the way you start an attack when you have a player who can do that. That's why you watch John Stones do it for England and Manchester City, and it's great because the player gets the ball at his feet and he'll carry 30 yards, and the rest of the team has to push forward, and it immediately puts pressure on the other players from the other team. And I just think he's been a great sign so far. I think if this is just what was the beginning, and I think he's going to be a fantastic player for us. And I do find it baffling how there were quite a few Peterborough fans who weren't keen on him. I find it odd because he just stands out like a sore thumb to me. He looks like a player who is far better than League One.
Move over to left back. Oviedo came on for James in the second half, didn't he?
Changed the game for me. Yeah, changed it a lot.
Well, why do you think that is? What do you think is it just because Oviedo had different qualities, or is it just because
you had to get him on eventually? We were losing the game, weren't we, at the time? So you had to get him on because he's such a good player. He's been fantastic this season so far. I like Reece James. Don't get us wrong. I think he is a far better defensive fullback than Oviedo is, because there was a couple of times, particularly in midweek, he made some great tackles.
Yeah,
he's a good player. I know you'd think someone so small, because he is quite small. I think someone like that would be a good attacking fullback, but he's all right going forward. Don't get us wrong, but defensively he's a lot more solid than Oviedo is. So it's good to have two very good options in that position. And it just showed yesterday we needed some more attacking impetus in the final third, so he brought Oviedo on, and again that pushed the team up 10 yards. And it's nice to have them both, because there could be a situation next week where Oviedo starts and James maybe has to come on while we're trying to see the game out. You know what I mean? So I quite like Oviedo's performance yesterday. I think he adds us a lot, especially at this level. He's comfortably one of the best players in this division.
Similar to Cattermole, James, do you think it's one of them where if they keep them, happy days, but if they get a chance to move them, then maybe they should?
It's very similar to Cattermole, and so far as we've said about the money, but also he has that extra bit of quality that in League One makes all the difference. Reece James is a perfectly fine, acceptable League One fullback, and no problem in that department. But Brian Oviedo is a level above that, and it shows. And if he's in your team, it's a huge asset for Sunderland this season. In trying to win promotion, just as Cattermole is in the middle. That bit of quality makes all the difference, because most teams, nearly all the teams, in fact, in League One don't have that in these kind of positions. So if Sunderland can keep those players, and again, everything's with the proviso of the finances, but if they can keep those players, then it can only help them. It's not like you're carrying two dead weights, which you would be if it was Gilabodji and Ndong that were staying. You've got two players here that really add something to your team and approaching the games in the right way, and would be a massive asset.
I do wonder if teams who were humming and hawing over Cattermole and Oviedo before they came back in the team have watched it and went, "Ooh, I think we've got to make a real play to get these two." Yeah, I think that come deadline day you'll see a vast increase in
it's the teams
interest.
that are certainly, even a Premier League team might look at Oviedo. I don't know so much Cattermole, but Oviedo, and be like, "Oh, we need a left back. We just had an injury at left back, and he can play it."
You telling me he's not better than Stephen Ward at Burnley or someone like that?
Well, he's a Premier League left back. He has played. Last year he wasn't great, but there's all sorts of things happening.
But I just think that a team like that might look at him and go, he would offer us a lot that our current left back doesn't. Mm-hmm. And he's playing well, comfortably one of the better players in Sunderland's team start the season. I'm a little bit worried that might happen. I want to keep them both now. I do. I think Oviedo is just a class apart at this level. Right,
we'll jump into midfield. We've obviously talked about Cattermole, so we'll skip him, but we'll talk about Max Power, and Dylan McGeoch obviously came on as well for him. I was surprised. I saw on the Roker Report's Twitter that even we were surprised that they made that substitution, but it seemed to work, didn't it?
Yeah. Power in the first half was probably the only Sunderland player trying to force the issue when we got near goal.
A couple of shots, didn't he?
Very close as well. But we weren't holding the ball enough. He can be a luxury at times, I guess. So although he's a very, very talented player, don't get us wrong, I just felt that game maybe didn't suit him as much. The ball was going over his head a lot from Wimbledon's perspective anyways. So what we needed then was somebody to feed the ball to who could be creative with it from deep, which is why McGeoch came on, and he was superb, I thought. I just rate him so much. He's one of those players who you wouldn't notice half the things he does in the game if you don't stare at him and really focus on what he's doing. Because he might only be playing a 5-yard pass, but he might have carried it 5 yards, and he might have just sent the opposition player 5 yards deeper, and then he might play. He plays it in areas which other midfielders maybe don't. But I thought him coming on the pitch yesterday was a big factor in us getting back into the game at ones each. Because he, like I say, he freed up Cattermole to get forward a bit. He freed up Honeyman to get forward a bit. Because they know how good he is, and they know they can just let him do what he needs to do. So there's no complaints from me from that perspective. I don't think Power's got anything to worry about. He didn't play badly. It was just a tactical change that needed to be made, and it worked.
James?
Yeah, I mean, I think Max Power was slightly below his the levels that he's put in the previous games in yesterday's match, and Ross said afterwards that he got a slight knock in training, which was possibly hampering a bit, hence the substitution. But McGeoch, particularly in pre-season, which is where I've seen him play most of his football, obviously, so far, is an excellent player, and I think he'll be one of the key men for Sunderland this year. He and Lyndon and Gooch were the two that worked the short corner for the equaliser. Just as a small example of a direct impact he had there. How, as we've said, how it all fits together when everybody's fit, and if Lee Cattermole stays, when you've got Power and Honeyman and McGeoch and everybody else all competing for those same positions in the middle of the pitch, on iron as well, is anybody's guess. But for me, he'll certainly be a regular starter once he's fully up to speed.
You mentioned Gooch. What do you make of Gooch? But Gooch so far has been brilliant. But yesterday, how did he do?
Gooch has been brilliant so far. Yesterday was one of his quieter games by his standards this season, but he still did well. He still caused problems. You can't be absolutely outstanding and blistering in every single game, and he certainly wasn't yesterday. But he certainly wasn't a passenger by any stretch of the imagination. He looks really, really top quality at this level. He looks as though he's playing a level, but at least one level below where he should be, and he'll be another player that will be absolutely crucial for Sunderland. If they're going to win promotion.
And moving across to Honeyman, we get accused at Roker Rapport of being Honeyman lovers. We rate him too highly, according to some. Others agree with us and think that he's a great player. But what do you make of the Honeyman debate? And firstly, should he have been named captain? And secondly, is he as good as what we think he is, or is he as bad as what other people think? Where do you lie on that? I really like George. I mean, I've seen George come through all the way from the under 21s, as it used to be in those days. From watching them, I think that he's one of these players that he's a bit of a coach's player, and that. You don't really see exactly what he does. Just from a surface view of it. It's not until you dig a bit deeper, and sometimes the coaches look at the figures and things that you actually see. His stats and the passes that he makes and the ball retention that makes all the difference, and then you can see why he's rated so highly by successive managers. As far as the captaincy goes, I think it was quite a statement to give it to a local lad and an academy product. It was a kind of a statement of where the club's going. I can there were obvious choices that were overlooked. Leuven's, or at that time Cattermole's role was still, future was still very much up in the air. So I can understand why he wouldn't get the armband. But yeah, I think it's a good choice. And the big factor now, as I keep coming back to, is he's got to play well to keep that place in the side. Do you think his place isn't necessarily secure? I mean, he is playing well. He's got a very good goal midweek, so I don't think there's any danger of him dropping out. I don't
think anybody's place should be secure. I think it's great that they're all on their toes, because over recent seasons there have been too many players that have been automatic choices, either through necessity because there's been nobody else, or some other factor in there. So I think it's good that everybody is on their toes and knows they have to deliver.
Gav, Maguire, you're a fan of Maguire. You've really liked him since he came in. Yesterday, got an assist.
Yeah, I thought he was like maybe Gucci. He didn't play badly, but he was a little bit quieter than he normally is. But he's a quality player, and he comes up with moments of quality when you need it. Exactly like he did when we got the winner. I mean, it was a great ball in. He sees players 5 seconds before the rest of the players on the pitch do, getting into positions. He put that ball in a back stick, and I don't think anyone expected Cattermole to get on the end of it, but he did. And that's why he's such a valuable player to Sunderland, because he's got bags of quality. And let's not forget, although he played for Bury last season and Oxford the year before that, he had spent majority of his career playing in the Championship with Sheff Wed. And he's an experienced player. He's quite clearly vocal, a big influence on the other players, I think, in terms of his personality. And again, he's got a little bit something extra which other teams don't. Like maybe if a Wimbledon or a Gillingham had a player like Chris Maguire in their team, they might have won the games against Sunderland where they didn't. That's hopefully where he'll set us apart by being such a clinical assist maker, I guess, because I know he's got 2 goals already this season, but he isn't selfish. He works hard and he tries to create chances. So I thought yesterday, although he was a little bit quieter, he he made all the difference on the goal, didn't he?
Yeah. And Madja up front, you said, Gav, that he had his worst game. Well, worst game this season. Obviously, that's saying a lot considering he scored in every game before. But James, what did you make of Madja? And next week, Charlie Wyke maybe fit, possibly. So
I think
we'll see that
against Wimbledon, there was such a big, powerful team. I think he got bullied, and it was really the first time this season that the fact that he's a 19-year-old lad sort of came to the fore. He was kind of roughed up and bullied a little bit. So it was his least effectual game of the season. And of course he didn't score, so Dave Halliday can rest in peace for another year. His record of scoring in the first 8 games of the season from the 1920s, that's gone for another year. But Josh Madja did pretty well to get as far as he did with a goal in the first 4. So I think that one poor performance in 5 games is not too bad, and if he can keep that ratio up between now and the end of the season, then that'll do.
It'll be good also for him to have that. I know he'll want that position himself, but it'd be good for him to know that the pressure isn't actually all on him when Wyke hopefully comes back this week, because I think that was when we were talking about Wyke being back this week.
Potentially, yeah, provided
back in training, I think.
Yeah, so he could make the bench for Oxford.
Yeah,
I think he will. I think he'll be there if he trains well and he's not feeling the effects of his injury. I think he'll be on the bench. He has to be, really. But we might not see him for a while starting games, because it's a lot of time he's missed. You know what I mean? He was pretty much through pre-season with Bradford, so he'll still be fit from that, and he'll have obviously still been working in the gym and things like that. But it's not the same as stepping out on the pitch, really. I would like to see him get a couple of under-23s games. I know we've got Stoke in the Checker Trade Trophy coming up. That's maybe a game he should be starting in. But I think the luxury we've got when we've got a player like Madja, who is, although he didn't play very well, scoring goals, the luxury we've got there is there's no pressure just to throw Wyke in. So if the situation calls for it, then he's there. I mean, at the weekend, yesterday, we could have probably done with him. A player like that, someone where the ball stick up front when because we had to go quite long in the second half at times. And obviously when Wimbledon were doing that thing, it would have been handy for somebody like Wyke just in that position who could have held on to the ball a bit more.
It'd be good too from set pieces to have him.
Maguire's deliveries and someone like Wyke in the box
set pieces as well.
Oh, well, yeah, both ends of the pitch, yeah. I mean, it was one of the big things in the summer, wasn't it, that we needed more physicality and more height in the team. And I do think we've added a fair bit. I don't think it's perhaps as much as people were expecting. I think people might have preferred us to go out and get a big centre mid. We didn't, but I don't think it's been an issue because of the way Ross plays. He plays a style of football which definitely suits smaller, hard-working players.
I also want to talk a little bit about the fact that we haven't conceded from open play yet. That's something that I think it's been a little bit overlooked, because we have conceded a few goals, but they've all been generally set pieces. So worry number one is they've been set pieces, which obviously means that maybe we're a bit weak there. But the fact we haven't conceded from open play in 5 games is something we should all be very happy with. I think Jack Ross will be delighted with it.
Yeah, I must admit I hadn't put that together. So yeah, I guess it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? It's good that you haven't conceded from open play in that way, but then people will say that set plays are the one thing that you can prepare for. So you'd have to look at it and find out whether it's just bad luck or you've been undone by a good set piece, or whether there's some kind of issue there that needs addressing. But I think when you look at Sunderland's record overall up to now, they haven't conceded more than once in a game.
Yesterday might be open play, actually.
Yesterday. Yes, it was. It was.
Sam just wrong there. I must have read that old.
There you go.
Oh, well.
Yeah,
well, until yesterday.
No, you think until yesterday.
Somebody's probably shouting at this podcast.
Somebody probably is.
I'll have about 20.
You got taking your word for it.
Yeah, well, just be directed at me.
Yeah.
It was at Conor Bromley who said that. So shout abuse at me. Right, we've got some. Are we all finished with the game? Have we all said what we wanted to say?
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I would say is just that we have to remember that this squad's been stretched a little bit. There's not been. You look at the bench in the last 3 or 4 games, we've had very little on the bench. Although the subs did make the difference yesterday. My point is that we've had probably the same 15 or 16 players in all of the games, give or take. So when performances dip slightly, when you've had so many games in such a short space of time, without really the opportunity to change it up, and don't forget we've been winning as well. So the manager might be a little bit less inclined to change the team. you are going to see a dip in performance levels, but hey, I'm not complaining as long as we're winning. At 1-0 down with, what was it, about half an hour to go yesterday, I never thought we were getting back in the game. I was sat there thinking this is probably the worst performance we've had in a while. We were really poor for a long part of that game, but we did what all good sides do, and we managed to build up the courage to get forward and score goals. And the players will take a lot of heart from the performance. They'll not dwell on the fact we played poorly. They'll look more towards the fact that they were able to show character and get back in the game. And we as fans have got to respect that as well and think, this is a team who doesn't give up. Quite clearly, we've been behind a few times already this season and managed to win games. So we have nothing to worry about from that perspective, and it's a stark contrast to last year, really, when we went behind pretty much every game and never came from behind to win the game. This is a different team with a different mentality, with players who are better suited to the situation we're in, and they deserve our support again for the rest of the season. In my eyes, I can't foresee this being a bad season for as long as everybody's on the same page, and I hope that remains the same.
Yep, I agree. One thing that's very, very different, very noticeable, particularly for someone like me, and I'm sure you guys too. But it's the mood change around the club from the fans, and I notice it the most because my Twitter stream has been a fairly poisonous place for the last 2 years, but it's been a much more positive, much more uplifting environment on social media, and I think that social media is just sort of a magnifying glass to the bigger picture, really. If things are going badly, then that magnifies it, and if things are going well, it magnifies it. So yeah, it makes the club, from my point of view, much easier to cover and a much more pleasant experience to cover.
I can imagine. We've all sort of had that positivity as well at Roker Report. Right, section 2. So we've got some general questions, some for James, some just to throw out there. First one, both of you are probably worth asking this actually. Do you see any player joining on loan before the window shuts? James, I'll throw it to you first though.
Yeah, I think there'll be certainly one will join. We've said many times that they need an extra striker. There's not enough firepower in the squad for a team that wants to finish, in the automatic promotion places. Jack Ross was saying yesterday that he wants somebody really that's capable of playing through the middle or out wide. So it sounds as though he's looking for somebody that can play that dual role rather than two separate players. So my guess is that there will be somebody else that joins this week, and if Gilabodji and Dong are moved out in the process, then that'll certainly help that come about.
Yeah, I think one thing which Jack Ross is he's very specific about what he wants in a player. So I think it's quite clear we probably could have had a player by now, but he's been very specific over what he wants. And they did want Billy Sharp for a while, didn't come off for a variety of reasons, although when you look at him now, he's playing pretty much every week for Sheffield United and scoring goals. It was probably maybe a bit unrealistic to expect that we could have done that, but fair play for them trying to do it, and certainly offered enough money to get him here. But in terms of what he wants in a player, I think he wants somebody that we can maybe develop. So maybe that's why you won't see an experienced player coming through the door.
Do you think it'll be a loan that they'll sign permanently?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I mean, there's been quite a lot of rumours around Ryan Christie, hasn't there, from Celtic, who I think's more of a central player, if I'm honest. Play in the middle of a three, in the centre of the park or out wide. I thought
he was more like a winger.
A
right back, right winger.
No, more centre midfield player, number 10 winger. He does play a few positions, I think.
So he's a versatile. He's a Tom Flanagan, but attacking.
Yeah, I mean that would that kind of fits the template that Ross was talking about yesterday, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's good though when you can, because we were talking about that 3-5-2, weren't we, or 4-2-3-1. The good thing is that he has players in that team who actually can fill in a few different positions. So I look at Max Power and I'm like, I would like to see him behind the striker.
Yeah,
I know we've got players playing there, but if there was an injury, it could be almost a blessing to see him go that little bit further forward.
You look at the fluidity in the team. You don't really have creative players. You don't have to give them a defined role. What's Chris Maguire? I always remember. Actually, one of the lads on the site wrote this, but it was reminders of it. Brendan Rodgers calling players like Suarez a 9.5. They're not a 9 or a 10. They're a 9.5. I guess that's what Chris Maguire is in the Sunderland team at the minute. He's not really playing on the left wing, is he? He drifts a lot, and he gets into pockets of space to try and cause problems, and that's, a player who's capable of doing that job will thrive in this system. So it'll be interesting to see if Aidan McGeady's fit and motivated. It'll be interesting to see him play in this team, because I think he could really cause damage at this level, particularly when he's given the freedom to do what he wants, provided he works hard, of course, because that's not to say Chris Maguire doesn't. He works very hard, but it would be nice to see them two competing for a slot.
Well, it's interesting. Leighton has asked a question: who do you think will make way / what will we do with Aidan McGeady when he comes back from injury? So presumably he'll have to deal with a bench to begin with, and then eventually he might get a role in the team. But where does he fit in? Does he fit in that Maguire position? Is that going to be a like for like almost?
Well, it depends. If Ross keeps with the same formation, then I guess that will be the most logical place to put him. But where you then shift Maguire to, and who misses out as a consequence, suddenly you've got a real problem. Well, you can't cram everybody into the same lineup, in the same starting lineup every week, and so maybe that's a good thing in a way, because it'll mean that when you have a program like that, 3 games in 6 days, you are able to make changes and bring in players who are not a downgrade from the ones that played in the previous game. At the moment, a lot of the decisions are taken for you because Sunderland are down to, as Gav said, sort of 15, 16 players, senior players, and so that will prevent that kind of situation continuing.
Nice to not have to firefight, isn't it? I remember last year we were doing these podcasts and we're going, well, Jay Clark, Saltell hopefully be better than John O'Shea this week coming up. Whereas this time it's like, we've got these players, and
an embarrassment of riches rather than just an embarrassment.
I know it's a cliche, but it's a nice problem to have, isn't it?
Yeah.
And maybe that's why Jack Ross is humming and hawing slightly on what he wants. He's probably got a player in mind he really wants, and that's maybe why some of the other moves which we've made haven't came off. James Wilson was a player we were definitely after, but then does he really fit the bill for what he wants? Probably not. So, he ended up going elsewhere. And to be fair, he probably wouldn't have been guaranteed a starting place. And that's another thing. If you're loaning a young player from a big club, they're going to want guarantees over whether that player starts every week, and we can't do that, because we're going to have, at some point in the future, we're going to have Watmore back, we're going to have McGeady back, hopefully Sinclair back, and then all of a sudden you're looking at it and you're going, we've got too many players. So for me, whoever it is that we bring in has to not just be with this season in mind. We've got to have maybe next season in mind too. Can that player contribute beyond this season? So I wouldn't be disappointed if we didn't sign anybody. I think the fact we're winning games is helping. If we hadn't have been, I might have been thinking differently. But for as long as players like Maguire stay fit, and you know that you have more players coming back.
You wouldn't be disappointed if they didn't sign anybody at all?
I wouldn't. No, I don't think I would be disappointed. I'm not saying that I don't want us to, but I just think that if we don't, it's not the end of the world. I think we've definitely got. Well, in an ideal world, we'll have players back, but that's not counting for future injuries, and
that's the thing. That's why I think there's still a striker short, because God forbid it happens, but if Josh Maja gets injured in training tomorrow, who do you start on Saturday up front? Yeah. Because Wyke isn't anywhere near ready to start games, so you're only one injury away at the moment from having a problem.
Yeah.
So I think that's why they need one more striker, just to avoid that kind of problem. So
I suppose as well, you're talking obviously with one injury away. Maybe with Gooch getting injured, God forbid that ever happened. We don't really have another winger.
But you could fill that round though, couldn't you? Because you move on Honeyman out the right hand side.
That's not what you want to do. Like, you know what I mean? You don't. And that's also, I guess you're hoping that Watmore comes back and is ready and fit and firing. So,
I don't think you'll get that many games from Duncan this season. Just because he's been out. That's by the time he comes back, he'll have played about half a dozen games in 2 years. So I think you could probably bargain on probably only getting 20 games out of him this year, and of those 20, maybe only 10 of them will be, top draw performances, just because he's been out so long.
Yeah, I think too, it's pace, isn't it? He was a pace merchant, and
Yeah.
now, what is his pace? When he came back last time, he still looked quick.
Yeah.
So, he might keep it, but
It's just that we saw with Fraser Campbell, didn't we? Do you remember with Fraser Campbell, he came back, did well for 3 or 4 games,
got
and then
called
they
by
dip.
England.
And then they dip. And that always happens when players come back from serious injuries and
run on adrenaline, basically.
Yeah, basically, and it's a well-known thing, and managers are alive to that. So I think that while Duncan will come back, this season, I don't think you'll see him back to being the Duncan of old until probably next season.
David Smiths asks. I'm losing my words there. David Smith, not Smiths. Do we change the system to try and incorporate Wyke in the team alongside Maja, or potentially drop Maja and risk unsettling him when we are likely trying to get his contract renewed? So that's quite a loaded question, but first bit, Wyke and Maja, are they going to be playing together, or do you think it'll be, just options? I don't know.
It's a very difficult question to answer. Well, the one thing in all of this is we don't yet know when those options are available to the manager whether this is the system that he's going to persevere with. We don't know whether he wants to play 2 up top, or whether he wants to just go in the way that he is now, with Maja leading the line, or Wyke, or it's difficult to know until we get to that point, I think. But I would suspect that Wyke will be the main starter, and Maja will either be alongside him or will be playing second fiddle to him. I would think.
It's interesting that when James talked earlier about the lopsided formation that Jack Ross said would play 2 up front, Maguire does, I guess, play sort of alongside the striker for a lot of the time. So it's not inconceivable that Maja could do that, because that's what he did quite a lot as a young player. He played off the left or as a 10 quite a lot. He wasn't a centre forward.
I remember always thinking of him as a number 10.
Well, he technically he's very, very good. He's not a line leader. He struggles. No. I think when anything's above his chest, he struggles. But technically, very, very good footballer. He reminds me a lot like a street footballer. Just got that raw ability to trap a ball out of thin air, and turn. And he's more of a midfielder in my eyes than a striker, actually, but he is a very good finisher. He's clinical, so it would be interesting to see whether he could play that role alongside Wyke rather than being the main man. It would take a lot of pressure off him, certainly.
Got a little bit of good news. Yedlin scored the late winner for Chelsea, an own goal. So Ooh. Chelsea won 2-1.
I didn't even know that they were neck and neck.
They scored a penalty on 76, then Joselu of all people equalised, then Yedlin got the own goal. Ooh. So Yedlin putting a smile on my face again. Okay, lost the train of thought there, but I'll just jump on to the next question. So this is for James. Does James think Jack Ross knows his best 11 when all fit, and does he think we'll go up automatically after grinding out 2 wins when not at our best? Again, 2 questions in that one as well, but best 11 we've sort of already answered.
2 questions. Well, yeah, we've kind of gone through that. As for the second part of the question, I don't see any reason why Sunderland can't go up as one of the top 2. I think basically when you look at that table now, you're already seeing that Peterborough are going to be a massive threat this season. What
do you make of Barnsley selling Bradshaw? That was an interesting decision.
Yeah, I found that quite odd. I mean, I think what they've probably looked at with him is in the 4 game, because he started every game before he left. He got 1 goal, whereas Kiefer Moore, who was signed
from Ipswich,
is doing quite well.
He did more really of a League well 1 for Rotherham, didn't he?
And is more of a League 1 player. Bradshaw with a year left on his deal, I think, so they've probably looked at it and went, £1 million for a player who doesn't score very much. We'll have that. We'll deal with that.
But then they drew the weekend, which is their first drop points, I think it was. Wasn't it? So.
Yeah, against Scunthorpe. I think they were 2-0 down, weren't they?
Yeah, they came back.
So they did.
But Scunthorpe's that manager, so you've also got different things to think about there.
But yeah, I think I know it's still very early days. Let's not forget there's only 5 games gone, but you can only judge by what you've seen so far, and on that basis, Sunderland are in with a great chance of going up automatically in this league. If you look back, as a general rule, you need to take an average of 2 points a game to get one of the top two places.
Last year, I think it was like 93, 94
yeah,
points.
So 2 points a game, essentially.
Yeah.
Sunderland are ahead of that rate. So, if they can keep going and keep to somewhere near 2 points per game on average, then yeah, they've got every chance.
Let's not forget as well, though, that Barnsley and Peterborough and Portsmouth have had all their best players fit. Sunderland haven't.
Yeah.
Sunderland have got a lot of good players out injured at the minute.
But Peterborough have been disposing of everybody very comfortably, haven't they?
Yeah.
Big win for them yesterday, 5-1 at Plymouth.
Cummins is a real threat at this level. They kept Marcus Maddison, who's probably the best player in the league last year.
Is it a surprise that we didn't go for Cummins? I don't know if there was interest from Sunderland on him, but it was a player I think we were interested in last season, weren't we?
Yeah.
Before he went to Forest.
I mean, he hasn't had to move very far, has he? Forest. Yeah. Those things do factor in. But
Lyle Taylor saw that happen.
Yeah. But he's just hit the ground running there, hasn't he? And he maybe found his level, I guess.
Yeah. All the League One players that come in at Sunderland and that have been asked about it all say that consistency is the thing in this league, and obviously Peterborough have shown consistency, Sunderland have shown consistency, which is why they're up at the top of the table. And that's something that we can only judge as time goes on, but that's going to be the name of the game.
Chris Craggs, would we suit a 3-5-2 away from home against teams that are direct and target putting the ball in the air? He's also added, it makes us play deep and we look vulnerable every time the ball is in the air in our box. Fortunately, both Gillingham and Wimbledon missed excellent chances. So 3-5-2 help against direct teams? Well,
we've just seen it in the last two games, which is obviously what he's talking about. And yes, Sunderland gave up an awful lot of chances in those two games, and other teams might have taken them, and Sunderland might have, as I said earlier, might have wound up with no points from those two games. But in League One, teams take more chances to score goals. That's just a fact of life, and so that there's a certain element that that is the way of the world at this level. The question is, do you want to keep changing your system between going home and away?
Probably not. It's interesting. Do you think we've got as a fan base, a Premier League mindset, in the sense that when we used to go to, say, Swansea away, and you look at it beforehand, you go, oh, we should take something there, and then you don't play great and you do get beat because of the quality. Do you think when we're going away and we're not actually playing great, we're just not used to being able to not play great? And
definitely. No, yeah, definitely. I think there's still a big adjustment to be had from a lot of our supporters, I think, and that probably won't come till say we get promoted at the end of the season. Then people might really start to digest just how much of a transition has had to be made to get to that point.
I think there's an element of playing the team name rather than the team that's on the pitch.
Yeah.
So you look and you think, we'll go to Peterborough, we'll knock them over, it's Peterborough. But then Peterborough have won 5 out of 5. They've got a very, very good League One team. People tend to view it in that way. And you said with Swansea, obviously when you looked at Swansea, the first season that Sunderland played them in the Premier League and things like that, I do think that comes into it. You have to deal with the reality. The reality is that now in 2018, Sunderland are where they are, and teams like Bournemouth are where they are. And history doesn't have any bearing on what happens on the pitch on any given day. And that, I know we can all point to fan base size, and we can point to, the trophies that were won in the past, etc., and all that's fine. But all that really matters on Saturday is, how the two teams go on when they lock horns, and that doesn't care a fig for history or anything else.
So it is trying to say that Gav's not going to a Newcastle away match has no bearing on the result?
Well, obviously, in that case, that's a special case.
No, I think in from Sunderland's perspective, you're bang on there. But I think other teams probably look at us on paper and just see Sunderland and go, ooh, Sunderland away. Like, Oxford aren't going to play as expansive as they did at the weekend to win the game when they come to the stadium. It's just the fact of the matter. They're going to come here and they're going to look at it and think, well, they're one of the top sides. They've got a big stadium. There's going to be loads of fans there. How do we deal with that? And we're going to find that more often than not this season. Yeah. Teams will just come and camp in their own half.
They're going to say Sunderland are flying. They've won 4 out of 5. That's what they're going to say. I think.
Yeah.
I think if Sunderland had lost the first 5, then Oxford might come here, and it wouldn't necessarily bother them that they're coming to a big stadium with a 25,000-30,000 crowd. It's the fact of how you're playing and how the team's performing.
Scunthorpe were overawed. I thought anyway. The first 5 minutes of that game, you could tell that they were not ready for the occasion. It's probably the first time they've ever played in the stadium.
Yeah,
that big.
I remember the first time I came to the stadium, which was with Bradford in the 90s. And at that time, I think Sunderland had only been in this. I think it might have been the first year that Sunderland were in the Stadium of Light, and it was a massive thing for clubs to come there. It was a state of the art, ground. Sunderland virtually never lost there, or so it seemed. Lost only a handful of games in the first 2 or 3 years, and it was a massive thing. I remember Bradford leaving there one day. I think they might have been, from memory serves, might have been Boxing Day with a goalless draw, and crikey, people were celebrating in the streets.
Yeah. Do you remember when was it John Dreher scored the winner?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah,
I think it was 2000.
Yeah,
it was pretty much one of the goals
before that. Yeah, it might have been the season before. It might have been 98, 99. Was it?
No, it was both in the Premier League.
Was it?
Yeah, because Bradford ended up staying up on the final day with Doug Weatherall.
Not Doug Weatherall.
Was it Doug Weatherall?
No, David Weatherall.
David Weatherall.
I'd love to have been there.
Yeah,
Doug Weatherall, one of the more senior members of the press pack, used to write for the Daily Mail.
Is that what it is? What the odds of me getting that one confused there? That was nearly good knowledge. Bradford City. Mike Smith asks, will Flanagan be fit soon, and when he is, can he be the answer to strengthening the defence to prevent it getting duffed up in games? Like that.
He'll be back in amongst it by the weekend, I think, is the plan, isn't it? Same as Wyke, he's not far away.
Is he?
Yeah. I was really gutted he got injured, because he in pre-season he was one of the best players in the team. Just looks very, very good in the couple of positions I've seen him play him, and he went centre mid against Middlesbrough because of McGeoch's injury and looked even better.
A bit of a ball. I mean, I've never seen him play ball playing centre back a little bit.
Yeah.
So him and
he's versatile. My guess is that in that lopsided 3-5-2 that we keep coming back to, if fit, he would have played in that instead of Donald Love as one of your 3. So
yeah,
that would be my thoughts.
Played a lot of full back for Burton, left back actually, but he's right footed, I think.
Yeah, he's just a bit of a jack of all trades, is he?
Which is a good, especially when you're very light on numbers. A good player to have, and I think he would have probably started the first game had he been fit, ahead of maybe Ozturk. And it's just a shame for him that he has missed the first 5 or 6 games of the season. It's just a shame, because he was comfortably one of the best players in pre-season. So I've got a lot of hopes for him, actually. I think in his short career, he's only 24, 25. I think he's 4 promotions he's had, 2 with Burton and 2 elsewhere on loan spells. So that's the kind of experience you need in your team, isn't it? Players who've been there and done it, particularly in League One. I know he's not. Burton didn't seem particularly good to be losing him, but I bet they could do with him now. Looking at the amount of goals they're conceding, I think him leaving might have had a bigger impact than they've realised.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's the grass is greener, isn't it? As a fan, you often say that, and then you see them doing well somewhere else.
Well, I tell you, they could do with a good defender at the minute.
David Atkinson, I mean, we have spoken about this a little bit, but he's directed a certain point. So he says, should we be worried that teams like Wimbledon can bully us and put us off our game? We are going to come against a lot more physical teams this season. I don't know if we will come against anyone really that more physical than Wimbledon, but we did struggle. That's fair.
You use the word teams like, and we can't be saying that. We've got to be realistic. We're a League One club, so are they.
Yeah. Was he just meaning teams like, as in terms of their style?
I just mean like. Yeah. I think we can't just think, they don't play nice football.
In all fairness, you do as a fan without knowing much.
You do.
You put all.
But do you know what I mean by that, though? Yeah. I think sometimes you said it earlier. You sometimes look at the name and you think, Wimbledon.
Isn't Brentford have that podcast? It's teams like Brentford, because everyone always puts them in that category.
Yeah. There are clubs who get quite offended by that. Yeah, by being called teams like.
Yeah.
But no, I think we. I don't know how you put this really. We've got a lot of good technical players, and we've got a lot of hard-working players, and more often than not will win games against teams like Wimbledon, because we'll just outwork them, and we'll it's a long game, 90 minutes, and we've shown more than once this season already in 5 games that we can do it for the full 90 minutes. We might have bad periods within that 90 minutes, but because we've got the character and because we've got the desire to overturn deficits, we'll win the majority of games playing that way. I've got no problem with that.
I think there are teams though in League One, and Wimbledon are a good example, and I think Luton as well were a good example. But they're tall, physical, powerful, and even if you look at Sunderland's team now, even though with the players that have been signed this summer, you've still got players like Lyndon Gooch and George Honeyman who are short, and you've got players like Lee Cattermole, who's probably 5'10", 5'11", something like that. Not giant by any stretch of the imagination. And when they come up against players who are 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", of course you have that physical mismatch there, but that doesn't mean that it's insurmountable. You just have to combat it in a different way. You have to be a bit more clever about it, and you have to take a different approach. You can't ask Lyndon Gooch to come up against some 6'4" centre back. You're going to have to find another way to get the better of him. As long as you can come up with the answers, then you don't have too much of a problem.
And let's not forget that Jack Ross's attention to detail is crazy. He knows exactly what, when they put the squad together in the summer, they knew exactly the sort of teams we'd be facing. And he's playing a style of football which hopefully does combat that. Away from home, you're going to, on a small pitch like Wimbledon's pretty unique in that sense. I don't think there's a lot of grounds in this league where the crowd's basically on top of you and the pitch is small. And they've built a team to play in that sort of environment. They've got a lot of big players and they play long. You're not going to come across that every week. I mean, you're going to come across it more often than not, I guess. But we've shown against perhaps one of the better teams that's playing in that style that we're capable of, turning it around, and we did. So I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't worry about the fact that there's bigger teams, because at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, we aren't going to be fearing them if we're playing well. They're going to be fearing us. They're going to be looking at our results and thinking, how do we play against Sunderland? They've already beaten teams who play a big physical style and done it well. I don't worry about that. I think that the mentality we've got to have is that we're going to each game hoping to win, playing to our strengths rather than play. We've done that for so many years now, where we've went out and we've thought, right, well, they're better than us here, they're better than us there. How do we combat that? We play 5 at the back like we did last season. I think if we'd been a little bit more confident in ourselves last season, we wouldn't have went down. We played too defensive for the majority of the season, and it was too late by the time we started playing good football. And this season we'll not have that problem. I don't think the manager's that naive.
Question here for James. Ryan would love an insight and your opinion on the previous owner and past managers. So, previous owner Ellis Short, I presume your dealings were mainly with Martin Bain and.
I mean, I can only speak of Ellis Short as I find. I mean, I probably met him maybe a dozen times over the 10 years that he was in charge on a personal basis, in terms of his dealings with me, such as they were, which weren't much beyond, hello, how are you, and all the rest of it. He was fine. He wouldn't do any kind of on the record interviews or anything of that nature. So there was never an opportunity to ask him direct questions. The only time I think I ever came close to anything like that was chatting to him on the eve of the Carling Cup final in 2014, when we were able to, have a bit of a chat over a drink and what have you. But there was obviously nothing that we were prepared to say on the record. But it was interesting to get a bit of a more of an insight into the way his thinking was. But by that point, he'd already sort of turned off the taps as far as the money was concerned, and he was looking at ways to sort of try and sell the club on, and yes, I mean, it's been probably at that stage it was still very much the case that he was open to offers rather than he was actively trying to offload it.
Do you think he got, I don't know, sick of it a bit? Because we've been sort of given, even like Stuart Donald when he came on said that he was he still like has care for the club and stuff. I mean, what do you think was the point where he grew sick?
I don't think that he doesn't that he lost. He reached the point where he didn't care. I think he reached the point where football completely baffled him, and this is just my own personal opinion, like I say. But
I doubt he's listening.
he couldn't. Well, you never know. But he couldn't quite get the idea that how much money you put in doesn't dictate how successful you are, because in most areas of life that he's involved in, the more money you spend, the better the outcome. And in football, we all know that doesn't. The money has to be spent well, and even then, it doesn't necessarily guarantee anything. Look at the money that Manchester United have spent, but they've not managed to win the title for 4 or 5 years, have they? So, I think that kind of got to him. And he reached a point where he just thought enough was enough, and he was prepared to carry on funding the losses, which were large, but he wasn't prepared to invest and try and chase success in inverted commas anymore. And that it wasn't like that at the beginning. If you remember, he gave earlier managers quite a bit of money to spend.
Roy
Keane.
Some of the Roy Keane money was given by the Drummondville guys, but Ellis and Short had to come in and pick up the bills for that, obviously, because the Irish economy, headed south, etc. So Ellis came in and took over a lot of those responsibilities. But again, that was back in those days. I think Roy might have spent, off the top of my head, probably 70 or 80 million pounds, but it didn't get the club to the next level, really, did it? I mean, obviously out of the Championship, but it didn't get the club a foothold in the mid-table and in the Premier League or anything like that. So I think he found that quite tough and baffling. And then I think once they made a really bad decision, and I think, and I've written pieces and never used them actually, but I think if you look, there's the point where things started to change for me was at the point where Martin O'Neill was given the sack, because Martin O'Neill was sort of brought to an end the line of whatever you think of how they fared. There were sane and sensible football characters, Steve Bruce and Martin O'Neill, etc., etc. And then suddenly there's this massive left field, swerve with Paolo Di Canio, and then director of football, and then Gus Poyet and so on, and then it became short-term solutions all the way along. And at that point, nobody was thinking, there was no grand plan. It was just purely about survival all the time. Survival, change the manager when things start to get rough, etc., etc., etc. And so all the planning went out of the window. And I think that the people in the boardroom at that time, Margaret Byrne, didn't manage the club well. And I think that a lot of the problems of the last couple of seasons are the after effects from that period. And I know that in the short term they did manage to survive in the Premier League, so people thought, or probably didn't think at the time, this is terrible. I know we're sacking lots of managers, but we're still in the Premier League. But all of a sudden all those problems came to one, and when Ellis said, all right, I'm not spending any more money, then that's what in my eyes was where the club started to sink like a stone.
Does it surprise you that it fell into League One? I mean, last year, going into the season, I wrote a piece for Roker Report saying that within a couple of years it wouldn't surprise me, because we actually had a ban on using the double relegation, didn't we, for a while? I was the first person to break that, because I was like, in a couple of years we're going to actually fall into League One because of the finances and everything else that went with it. Did you have that? Were you surprised to see that?
I was surprised actually, yeah. I didn't think that Sunderland had any chance of challenging for promotion from the Championship last year. I didn't think either, though, that they would be relegated. I really didn't see that coming. Now, there is one person whose opinion I respect, and he said when Sunderland was still in the Premier League, said to me, if Sunderland go down, then I can see it as going down another level as well. And I thought, well, that's sort of alarmist talk, really. I can't see that happening. But he turned out to be right, and I was wrong. So, what does that tell you? But I thought Sunderland would probably end up finishing 14th, 15th last season, and then try and rebuild from there. But obviously, it was such a catastrophic start. And I know that people will point at Simon Grayson or this or that or the other. But I think that by that time you're in such a situation that you've got no budget to spend, or next to nothing. £1.25 million on 10 or 11 players, however many it was that came in. You're fighting fires and you've got no budget. You're competing against championship teams that are spending massive amounts of money compared to that. It just becomes a spiral, and you had the rotten core players in there, the Gillabodgis and Ndongs and these guys, and in many ways, I know it's an easy thing to say, but relegation to League One is catastrophic at the time, and a club like Sunderland shouldn't find itself in that situation. But if it's enabled the club to clear the decks and start from scratch and reconnect the fans with the club again, which it obviously has, then some good will come out of it, and they could come back to the Championship, hopefully next year, and be in a better position than when they went into the Championship out of the Premier League. Yeah. That's my feeling.
Managers, David Moyes is the one asked you. I presume Ryan probably wants you to call David Moyes worse than everything, but what was your dealings with him? Well,
I think I found David Moyes easy to deal with, easy to get on with. He got a torrid time here. He was another person that came in and was left with a squad that had to be revamped, and with Ellis not giving more money than Sunderland had spent last year, but still in Premier League terms nowhere near what it needed. And I think when you look at it, you could see that there's a pattern emerging. Sam Allardyce had no intention of staying because he was very clear. We said to Sam towards the end of that season, what's going to happen here? Are you going to stay? And he said, I'll speak to the owner, see what the plan is, and then make my decision. He spoke to the owner and immediately thought, I'm out of here. Now the England job came along, so that was an easy route for him, but he wouldn't have stayed. Even if the England job hadn't been available, he would have wound up somewhere else. So even Sam, on that budget, didn't fancy trying to change the squad to the extent that he needed to. And so David Moyes came in, had that budget, couldn't change the squad in the way that it needed to turn things round. Yeah, he signed some poor players like Gillabodji and Dong. But you can't get away from that. There was some poor players came in, but what happens is you get into a scenario where a lot of the decisions are not forced on you, but you're forced into a set of circumstances. So Sunderland are in this constant battle against relegation. That means that the players that you want to come won't come because they see Sunderland as a basket case. They don't know whether the manager they're signing for is going to be in charge in 6 months' time. The players that you can get, you have to overpay for. And so all these factors come together. So you end up not signing the players that you want to sign, but signing the players that you can get. And I think that that's been a massive problem with Sunderland over the last 2 seasons, but it's changed now because suddenly in League One, Sunderland are a big draw, and players will come to Sunderland. There are players here, look at some of the lads that have joined this summer, and Sunderland are the biggest club they will ever play for. It's a big step forward for them. I mean, and that's a good thing. I think that you're signing players who see coming here as a step up, whereas in the last 2, 3, 4 years, one player I'll give you, Fabio Barini, they thought they were doing Sunderland a favour by coming here. They sort of felt like they were lowering themselves to sort of come and help you out for 12 months, and that's not the kind of person that you want at your football club. No, yeah, I hear that. What about? Who was the worst one to deal with then? Or you worst manager to deal with? Most of the managers in recent times, probably going back to as far back as David Moyes, have been good to deal with. There was a spell of managers before that, Di Canio and Gus Poyet and Dick Advocat. They're all good in a press conference environment, but they don't want any kind of relationship beyond that. And prior to that, you have to go back probably as far as Peter Reid to find a manager who was interested in having a good relationship with the local media.
Maybe like Steve Bruce?
Steve Bruce as well. Sorry, yeah. Steve Bruce an exception, but the others weren't really. They were fine, and they would deal with you, but no more than they had to. But yeah, I think it's a bit like the old school thing. So Reedy and Steve Bruce and people. Yes, I thought Sam Allardyce would be different. Maybe Sam, if he thought he was going to stay longer, maybe he would have made more of an effort in that direction.
So it's interesting that Allardyce took it then if he never ever had any. Or was it just because he had that massive pay in his contract? If you're going to be blunt, do you think that's why he came?
I think it was the start of Fireman Sam, wasn't it? It was the start of, Sam Allardyce is the man to get you out of trouble when you're facing relegation or possible relegation. And he's done it at various clubs since, hasn't he?
He's not thick, is he? I mean, he does the same thing every year. He waits till a club needs him, and probably negotiates a good wage with a good bonus if he keeps them up.
Wasn't he the highest paid manager last year? Didn't he wangle himself a ridiculous £8 million contract if he kept them up?
Well, it wouldn't surprise me because they said no to him in the summer, and then of course when they sacked Ronald Koeman, they then had to come back to him. So he said, well, I'm now a lot more expensive than I would have been before, and because your need is greater.
Yeah, he's not daft. Final question, Jordan Davis. Now this is his words, not mine. Could you ask James if he has become less dour now we have won a few games?
Less dour? Am I dour? Lads, I'm looking around the room.
Dour today, but
yeah. I think probably. Sorry, was it Jordan? Did you say
Jordan Davis?
Jordan, yeah. I think probably what Jordan's referring to is a bit of a combination of two factors. First is that I'm a Yorkshireman, so I'm never necessarily a barrel of laughs. Also, I think covering the club for this is my 20th season, and the last 6 years have been pretty difficult, as I'm sure fans would agree. I think it has an effect on you, and so it makes you a bit cautious, and you don't want to jump into anything with both feet because you don't know yet whether it's the real deal. I really hope it is. I really, really hope it is. I think all the fans certainly deserve it, and the club deserves a change of fortune. But I don't want to get too carried away just because.
Leave that to us. We'll get carried away.
You just got to be a little bit cautious because you never quite know. But hey, there'll be nobody happier than me if this trajectory continues, because it's fantastic, and as I said to you earlier, it's a much happier football club to be around.
And
that'll reflect on me.
Yeah. You are smiling. I smile quite a bit today. I can't vouch for that. Who do you support initially? Is it Bradford?
I don't have a team.
You don't have it. You must have had one.
I don't have a team. I'm from Bradford. Bradford is my local club, and it's the club that I went to see, when I could on Saturdays when I was growing up, just because it was a local team. But I was never a Bradford fan. Don't have a Bradford shirt or a scarf or anything of that nature. I covered Bradford for 5 years when I was down there, but yeah, I don't have a team. So
that's interesting. Like my dad's the same. He doesn't really have a team. Just likes watching football.
I love watching football. I love watching good football. It doesn't necessarily bother me too much, who that is that I'm watching. I used to love watching Arsenal, love watching Barcelona. I love watching great teams. I love watching Manchester City now, but without the sort of absolute misery if things go against you.
Fair play. Okay, I think we're all just about done. Oh, actually, no, we haven't actually previewed next week's game, so we'll have a quick score prediction for next week's game against Oxford. We're going to win 7-0 again.
It would be nice, wouldn't it, to repeat that?
Imagine that. It would be. I might actually put a pound on that.
Well, that game was an interesting one because the week before Kevin Phillips got injured against Chester in the Cup.
Oh, we're playing with Dickie and Bridges, weren't we?
Yeah, so we had no Super Kev, and everyone was worrying, and then we just went out and absolutely mullered Oxford. So they've not really got happy memories of coming to Sunderland. No.
I think Meffin was here, wasn't he? I'm sure he said he was at that game.
That's an interesting little side story as well, that the owners are Oxford fans. I'm sure there'll be massive Sunderland fans on the day, of course.
That's what they said. They were asked that, who would you be supporting them when Oxford come here, and they did say, Sunderland, of course. But I think you all know that if it's your team, then they'll feel conflicted on the day. But I'm sure they'll want Sunderland to win, won't they? Surely.
So anyway, you still give a prediction.
I think it'll be another dominant performance. I think we'll.
A Scunthorpe.
Well, I know they got a better result at the weekend, but they've had a poor start, and they're gonna be very cautious coming here. So I think it might take us a while to break them down, but I think 3-0 is probably realistic. I think we're gonna.
Thing is, I'm glad Oxford won because you saw that. Like,
oh yes, definitely.
If they continue losing, now you can't lose every game. So at some point,
keeps us on our toes as well. The players can't just think this is the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
So I reckon 3-0, and I think we'll hopefully see White get on the pitch, which would be good for the home crowd to see the Star Summer signing come on. Yeah. And yeah, keep the winning run going. I don't think there's any reason to doubt the team at the minute. I think we're doing fantastic. 2
big home games coming up, to be fair. Fleetwood after that. So
that's probably the more interesting game because they've had a couple of good wins. I think they absolutely battered someone.
We'll worry about that one next week after we've beaten their.
But yes, you can only think of the game ahead, and I think we'll do all right.
James, what do you think?
Much of what Gav said. I think 2 or 3-0 would be my guess. I'm notoriously bad at predicting scorelines, but I'll have to hang my hat on something. I'll go for that.
I mean, if you were good at it, you'd be a millionaire because you'd be betting on every week.
Well, that's true.
That's true.
Yeah. Although I think I won both my Roker Riches this week.
Did you?
Just saying. For the first time ever.
I haven't even checked mine. I had a good win last week.
Yeah, I had over 2.5 goals in the Sunderland game, and I had Liverpool and Arsenal win. So
I had Sunderland to win and over 2.5 goals, and I had a 4 Fulham, which I don't think did very well. But I was the champ last year, so
that's true.
If anyone listening wants betting tips,
I just throw £50 on everything every week and hope for the best. Okay, so thanks for coming on, James. It's been a pleasure talking. Probably could have stretched this over the 1 hour and 32 minutes we've went.
Thank you very much.
It's always average to have you on.
Thanks.
Thanks for filling in actually because you weren't scheduled.
Wasn't no. I've got some hungry people back at home I need to feed right now. I'm getting phone calls and texts.
Well, you like the cook? Like are you the chef?
No, it's a takeaway night, isn't it? Sunday. So.
They've got to wait for you. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
I'll just keep this dragging on now, just so you know.
I've got 2 missed calls, so the hunger levels must be going through the roof.
Okay, well, I'll just slowly close my iPad and just keep you. Actually, to be fair, you could leave. I mean,
I could at any moment. Hold this hostage.
Follow everyone on Twitter and Instagram. I won't even say it now because you all know it's Roker Report and
at Gav1879. Go on Instagram. I'm trying to ramp that up a bit. I have done.
On Instagram? On your Instagram?
The Roker Report one.
The Roker Report
top Instagram as these days, man.
Yeah, we are. I do check it. I like the stories. Yeah. James, you were just on Twitter? Have you got Instagram?
I have got Instagram, but I don't really use it. So
you're a picture guy?
Not really. I just put them on Twitter. Just that I don't know whether I get any value out of Instagram. I don't know.
Do you spend much time on Twitter? Do you read your news feed constantly and your notifications?
Not constantly, but probably a fair bit of time, but I'm not one of these people that's up at 4 o'clock in the morning checking anything, driving up to the wall.
It's interesting that obviously I've only just started looking at Instagram, and it's interesting you can see who's been checking it and stuff. And Lynn and Gooch read every single photo which goes up. Michael Ledger and Grant Ledbetter as well. Yeah, they're on. Yeah, they look at everything we put
I remember Grant Ledbetter being linked. Yeah, he's been playing for Borough though, so I don't think.
Has he?
Yeah, he played on Friday.
Right.
I'm sure he did.
Because whenever I check his Instagram story, he's always on holiday somewhere. I thought he might be injured.
I'm sure he played. I'm sure I saw him. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong about a few things today. Right, okay. Thanks for coming on, everyone. We'll speak to you next week.
See you later.